Hello, MouseHunt. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome. It is Feedback Friday for August 30, 2019. It feels like it's been quite a while since I have checked in on Feedback Friday. Has it been 4, maybe 5 weeks? I'm not quite sure, but for sure there was a couple times it was Jacob's turn in there. I was sick one of the Fridays, and I had another one of the Fridays off, and actually another Friday I was pretty preoccupied with Valor Rift, so Jacob did an extra session. So it may have been 5 weeks if I'm recalling correctly here. Hello, 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 everyone in the chat saying hello to me. Hello, Tarako, Stejan, Jason, Peter, Diamond, IFL, Ray, Monica, Yud Hishira. I'm having trouble pronouncing your name, but hello, I'll call you Yud. Trevor, Purple, Ron, a Swift, Arctic, Daniel, hello, hello. Well, today we'll go over a couple updates that are in the pipeline here and get a little feedback, hence the name Feedback Friday. We have a hunter profile overhaul that we've been working on for a bit, and we are just getting ready to launch this next week. So the update highlights your stats, your trap setup, some of your accomplishments in a much more visual way. It's been certainly long overdue. This section of the game has needed a facelift for quite some time here. So it's good to give it a fresh coat of paint. Alongside some of the cosmetic changes are a couple new small features as well. The profile's been updated to not just show the number of horn calls you've had, but you can also see how many times you've been brought on a hunt with a friend and how many trap checks you've had. So actually on the left here you see we drew a little inspiration, I think, from a driver's license for organizing some of the stats. And when you hover over the 90 for this hunter here, that's how many times they've sounded the horn. But when you hover over it, a tooltip appears and it'll show you how many times a friend has brought you on a hunt and how many trap checks you've had. Actually, sorry, I misspoke. That 90 is the total number of hunts that person has been on. So that'll be a little bit different because right now it's just horn calls on the profile page. So it'll show total hunts, and then you can hover over it and it breaks it down into horn calls, friend hunts, and trap checks. And some people in the chat have already noticed there are some new looking crowns. We have updated the artwork for bronze, silver, and gold, and we've also added a platinum and a diamond crown as well. So part of the new profile is you can display your favorite mice, not just in the King's Crown tab of your profile, but you can display it right on the main tab of the profile. So we took the opportunity to finally, under very popular demand, add a platinum and a diamond crown as well. So the platinum you earn at 1,000 catches of a mouse, and the diamond you earn at 2,500 catches of a mouse. So there'll be some new achievements to chase for sure for those hunters who are looking for an extreme King's Crown challenge. 2,500, depending on the mouse, could be quite the challenge. I mean, even for a white mouse or something that you encounter 100% of the time, doing 2,500 hunts for a specific mouse, that's a lot of hunting. As if asks, isn't 500 enough? For sure, that was kind of the mentality, and maybe it's what took a little bit long to add a new tier of King's Crown. That said, they only appear on your profile if you have earned one, so we wanted to avoid it feeling like an empty spot for kind of a level of accomplishment that not a whole lot of hunters will achieve, I think. 1,000 and 2,500 is quite a lot of catches for one mouse. So you're trying to put it together in a way where it wouldn't feel like it's mandatory that you need to go out and earn these kinds of crowns. But for those looking for above and beyond type challenges, there's a little something for them as well. Destin says, can you check lifetime catch rate? Yes, that is on your, or you mean, you might be saying for all mice of all time. I don't think we have that handy anywhere. You can check it per mouse right now. On the mouse section, when you click a mouse to read its descriptions and see your stats, it'll show you number of catches, number of misses. Actually, before I misspeak, I think that might be paused right now as we had some major technical challenges with the mouse page. Let me double check here. The global stats, sorry. So your personal stats still update. Unfortunately, that has been paused for months, and we have not had the technical bandwidth to sit down and it needs to be gutted, and actually a whole new data structure needs to be put into place for tracking global stats. That came into effect, I think, 8 or 9 years ago, and it has certainly not withstood the test of time, using some rather old technology and very dated approaches to scaling data. Trevor says, I have 15 diamond crowns. That is good. I wonder if I could grab, actually, I didn't grab a screenshot of the whole profile. Let me see if I can grab that real quick. On the fly, screenshot grabbing here. Profile page overhaul. What do we got? I'll grab a quick screenshot here. And my hunter that I have here is in Queso Geyser. Be a little bit cut off. You got to scroll. Obviously, there's a lot on the profile page. So let's see what I can do here. Get rid of this driver license looking unit and add this screenshot. So my desktop. Yes. Ooh, chest fits. So here's a bit of a zoomed out version of that. You can see the main stats section up in the top left. We've made the trap much larger. Definitely one of the most interesting parts of the game, in my opinion anyway, is all the fantastic art that the art team puts together. So we really wanted to highlight that a lot more on profiles and just make everything a little bit more visual. So instead of just a list of here's your trap, here's your base, here's your charm, actually showing the artwork of that, and you can hover over it to see the name if it's something you don't recognize. It was definitely, like I said, definitely long overdue. The profiles as they are right now in the game, they came out, I think, just over 9 years ago. It was a version that launched with MouseHunt version 3, which is called Longtail as its code name. And that current profile, I can even remember, we were kind of done all the major gameplay stuff, and we were getting ready to launch Longtail, and we're going through trying to make a checklist like, okay, what are all the loose ends we got to wrap up? And one was like, oh, right, we need a hunter profile page. And so I think that thing got put together in like 2 days, super quick. And that's why it was all just primarily text and it wasn't very pretty looking. So it's definitely long overdue. It's nice that we finally had a chance to spend some time and to overhaul it. Nathan says, Diamond Crown for Lost Legion. Oh yeah, I'd be curious if I'm going to have any Diamond Crowns. Let me see here. Let me go to my profile. King's Crowns. Yes, I will have a few. Oh, I'm going to have a Diamond Crown for the Master of the Dojo. A Diamond Crown for some of the other Foroma Masters. Almost there for the Dwarf. And quite a few Platinum Crowns for sure. Cool. Sejin says, will it be possible to see the map as if you had the map link with that treasure map section? I believe so. So if you're on a map, and I don't think my test account here is set up on a map right now, but you'll be able to click it for info and it'll open up that dialog so you can preview that map the person's working on. Similarly, the team tab will just kind of display their team name a little bit better and also put all the trophies right there so you can see how many trophies the team has earned without having to load their profile page. Add option to hide gold. Well, I guess that option is somewhat there, where you can just stockpile a whole bunch of cheese at refunds for the same amount or something. But I don't know if we'd go and add something like that. Yep, map at the bottom of the page. Indeed, there's a little tabber. This is a bit of a first pass. Obviously, there's a lot we could do with the profile. So I think the original envision of this was to have something a little bit more modular. You could customize what you wanted to appear, where it was on your profile. But just to, again, kind of keep the timeline somewhat reasonable. We kind of dialed back the functionality a little bit. That said, as always, when this goes live, we'll be keeping a very close eye on feedback, suggestions from players as well. We've already slotted in a little time for a follow-up milestone to return to the profile, look over feedback, and tweak some things based on how players interact with and give us suggestions for the profile. As if says, hey Dave, is it possible to improve scrolling in the app? It is a little bit of a limitation. Just again, being a bit of an older app, it's built with some technology where scrolling is a bit of an issue when you have a really long scrolling that can get a little bit of a stutter. So short term, no. Long term, maybe. Nathan said, could we get map clues found on the profile? I believe that is there. And here I did, I closed it. But I think it'll tell you total clues found. If not, that's a good suggestion as well. As it says, I meant the game does not remember where you have been. Indeed, that is another bit of a limitation when you're navigating through a scroll list and you click it to view info on something that you scrolled to. When you go back to the list, you're at the top of the list. Certainly a little frustrating, not ideal, but unfortunately Just kind of how the app is built and the technology it uses is not particularly feasible to implement something a little fancier. The next thing we have to go over here is a little more content. Well, I meant to change how the slide looks. All right, give me a second here, actually. I was going to put a trap. Well, here, I'll transition here, and I meant to put an image of a new trap on the slide as well. Let's see if I can find that. Dissonance. Oops. You know what? I'll start with this. Sure. No, maybe not. It's my developer art. I won't subject you to looking at my placeholder developer art. I will go get the actual artist's rendition of this trap. Safe to say it's far superior to my developer art. Valor Rift art. Celestial. It's hard to spell. There's, nope, that's not it. Celestial. There it is. Fancy. Alright, download this. What are we doing here? Media file. Editing on the fly. Whoa, line this trap up with the base, maybe? Fancy, nice. Alright, and over we go. Forgot I had a background illustration. So Valor Rift, I want to give everybody a quick update. I've certainly not been on Feedback Friday for a while. You may have seen Jacob draw some Valor Rift related assets though. Just as a sort of precursor, certainly everything's still a work in progress, so some gameplay details, item names, other terms, they might change before release, but certainly makes it a little easier to talk about something when you have at least some placeholder names for things in place. So I think as we've mentioned on other Feedback Fridays, I just noticed this text is cut off, it's going to bother me. There we go. Valor Rift. Hey. We've been working through some creative challenges. Actually, earlier in the month, we hit not really a roadblock, but just something wasn't quite working, wasn't feeling quite right. So we didn't go all the way back to the drawing board, but we did quite a significant shift in terms of how the area works. But after that, we've worked through that earlier in the month, and it's really starting to take shape now. So the King's Gauntlet or not the King's Gauntlet, the Valor Rift is themed after the King's Gauntlet, where you climb an endless tower. You're just going higher and higher and higher. Whereas the original iteration was 8 floors, and it just didn't quite work out as well as we had hoped, so we explored the idea of it being an infinite tower. So the floors, they're going to repeat. You get floors 1 through 8, and as soon as you get past floor 8 and you're on floor 9, it's back to a puppet-themed floor, but the floor becomes a little bit longer every time the themes repeat. So it kind of incrementally gets longer and longer and longer. Each floor gets larger the higher up you go. Station saying, small areas, they said. Wouldn't take long, they said. They'll just have a base, they said. Yeah, definitely, there's some intricacies in how it's set up that require a lot of kind of deep diving in and kind of play testing, fine tuning as we go. So it's definitely a little bit smaller scale in relative to some of the other areas in the game, but it's certainly a little bit more than, say, Froma or somewhere you kind of collect some loot, craft a cheese, move up, or Fungal Cavern, for example. That would be kind of a smaller scale, easier to put together area. Q asks, does it still have the prestige thing? Yes, so that was what I was describing there, where you go floor 1 through 8, and then when you're on floor 9, you're back on like the puppet floor, which is the theme of floor 1, but now you're sort of prestige level 2. So I don't know if we'll actually use that term or not, but the floors repeat themselves, and every time the themes repeat themselves, it becomes a little bit harder. New mice get added to the pool that are harder to catch. There are also sort of this theme of these champions, so there's a puppet-themed Rift mouse, but there's also a puppet champion, and it's much, much more difficult to capture, and the higher up you go in the tower, the more and more champions start getting added into the encounter pool, which makes it more and more difficult to keep going. Tarako asks, how many new mice? That's a good question, actually. I don't know off the top of my head. Let me see. Open up my trusty spreadsheet, which has grown to epic proportion over the course of 2 months. And So there are 25 new mice in the Valor Rift. There is one mouse theme for every floor of the King's Gauntlet, as you'd expect: Puppet, Thief, Melee, Bard, Magic, Noble, Dust, Eclipse. And then there's another mouse with the same theme, but sort of a champion of that floor, much more difficult to capture, much more rewarding to catch as well. And so each floor has a champion, including the Eclipse. There are sort of two forms of the Eclipse, and you got to work a little extra hard to coax out the Total Eclipse, which will probably have us singing Total Eclipse of the Heart during playtesting for years to come. Swift says, wait, so each floor has two mice, a regular one and a champion. There are also a host of kind of generic Gauntlet mice that are in the mix as well. So those you find no matter where you are in the tower, and then depending on which floor you're currently on, you get a different theme mouse. And then depending on how high up in the tower you are, you get the champion, and its encounter rate keeps going up. Similarly, when the floors repeat themselves, you unlock the encounter of a new, more rewarding mouse, and then when they repeat themselves again, there's another mouse added, and then finally there's a third one as well. So let me see if I can do my math here. That's when you reach floor 24, or actually 25, when you get past 24, then you'll have almost the entire encounter pool available to you. Chong asks, will there be a map for this new location? If you mean treasure map, probably. I don't know if it'll come out on release, but it might come out shortly thereafter. If you mean a map piece, it has been a popular suggestion with hunters to have the area require that you calibrate your rift detector in a little bit of a different way. So it's something we're probably leaning towards doing. Traco says, can you start over from the beginning if you want? Yes, there is a retreat option. So you can retreat back down to the ground floor. That said, the higher up you go, the better the rewards get. So there's usually incentive to just kind of keep going. Even if the run isn't going quite as strong as you want, you may probably still want to finish it out, claim your reward, and that'll make you stronger for the next time. IFL asks, are there water jet term equivalents for the tower? Actually, that's a good sort of comparison to make. It does sort of feel like a little bit of a hybrid of the Sunken City and Fort Rocks in a way. You can almost take it as though when you get to the end of Fort Rocks and there's the monster of the meteor, it'd be almost like another day immediately started, or another night immediately started that was more difficult than the night before, and you want to see how many nights you can survive. That's kind of similar to the idea of prestige, where every time the floors repeat themselves. What's the name of the codex right now? The name is called the Codex of Valor. But again, like I said at the beginning, subject to final decisions and name changes. But I always like to share things early as well, because it's a great chance to get some first impressions, early feedback, and often that helps guide our final decisions for sure. Q asks, will there be a Rift Relic Hunter and Rift Crown Collector? No, not as part of this area, but that has been an idea kind of floating around. It does sound neat to have a Rift Relic Hunter at one point, but we have to kind of brainstorm what that exactly would entail. Sen says, treasure maps come out a little bit after release. Yeah, it's a good sense. We kind of get a little bit of feedback from players as well, get a good sense of how they're approaching the area. It's a good time to do any sort of low, not bug fixes we typically roll it right away, but if there are any sort of final tweaks or some feedback we want to address from the larger player base as well, it's nice it acts as a little follow-up release to kind of check those boxes off. Swift says, yeah, I think you should require a new map piece. That does seem like a popular suggestion. I like that idea as well. Certainly there's enough Rift content now that jumping straight into the Valor Rift would be quite daunting. Definitely some of the mice are difficult. It's assuming that you're coming in a little more heavily kitted using the time split dissonance, have your clockwork base, have your Rift Stalker Codex ready to go to really kind of push high levels up in the tower. That's the nice thing about how it's set up. Even if you don't have all the best gear, you're still going to make it, a decent way up the tower, and you'll slowly get the rewards. It's just if you can get a little higher, you'll get more rewards each run, which will kind of speed up how fast you go through it as a whole. Arctic asks, is MouseHunt World coming out in Q4? Don't really have any info about that at all. Stejan says, is the mouse pool like Queso Geyser but floors instead of eruption size? Only one cheese or two possibility. All the string cheeses work. There's going to be a Gauntlet string cheese to attract a unique mouse. That's a little easier to catch, so to help secure more consistent and steady progress as well as attraction rate will be important in that You move forward, you move a step forward when you capture a mouse, similar to the labyrinth, but failing to attract or failing to catch will keep you in place. So to really kind of keep moving past the floors, you want to make sure you keep attracting and capturing mice. KDM says, can you show us the Rift Necromancer or the Rift other T7 guy? Funny you ask that, because that was actually the mouse that I had here before I put the trap up. So here, I can put that mouse back up. Where did it go, though? Okay. Disappeared on me. Oh well, we'll find it again. So we're going to search for the Valor Rift. And we'll sort by this. This is the one I picked out? No, the other one. The Withered Remains mouse, it is called at the moment. And it's a little awkward, but I will attempt to add this to the stream. Add a file, and the file name is 171C. Alright. It's kind of facing the wrong way, but oh well. So that is one of the floor 7 mice, not the champion, but the regular mouse at the moment named the Withered Remains. Diamond says, when is the new area coming out? Don't quite have anything to share quite yet. Might touch base on that as well, though we're looking for feedback on the best way to approach Valor Rift and Halloween. So some of these creative design challenges that we had a little earlier in the month where we shifted how the area was going to work, obviously that had an effect on the timeline or the release date of the area. Probably pushed us back by, I'd say, somewhere around 2 weeks to kind of retool that, maybe 3. So we're looking at probably sometime in September, toward the end of September, which is getting a little bit close to the Halloween event. So the way the area is set up actually would lend itself well to being an area where you could fire cannonballs from, because the Halloween event will involve ghost ships again. That said, we're doing a little bit of a unique spin on it, kind of retooling how the ghost ships work. So we may be able to have the Valor Rift act as a kind of stockpile location, as well as a unique Halloween mouse added as a sort of almost like a bonus loot event just for the Valor Rift as part of this Halloween. And that will hopefully smooth things out where you're going to be able to continue to progress on the Valor Rift adventure and pursue your goals in the Valor Rift without feeling like you have to not participate in the Halloween event. So I think there's going to be kind of a creative solution there. And that's also a little comforting as well, obviously, when we shifted kind of the design perspective of the area a little bit. That may also mean that we need a little bit more time to kind of play test, make sure it is 100% before it comes out. So that's a little bit of a safety net as well to kind of ease our anxieties in case the Valor Rift comes out a little closer to Halloween than we'd like. Whole lot of things in the chat here I'm missing, I think. Chong asks, how much bonus does the new Rift Codex provide? That is a good question, actually. So the Codex of Valor at the moment is the reward for completing the adventure in Valor Rift. However, it is empty when you get it, and you can add 8 unique pages themed after all the original floors in the King's Gauntlet to provide power type luck and power bonuses. So you could get a physical power type bonus and a physical luck bonus. For example, by adding these pages into your codex. So when you complete the whole codex, you're going to get a number of bonuses that work throughout the game. They're not limited to the Rift at all. They'll help you anytime you have a physical trap armed. It's basically like you had a physical power bonus codex in your inventory. Stesian asks, will the Codex of Valor have an infinite scaling? That's a big book. You can just keep adding pages. Well, I guess I just touched on that. There will be 8 pages. Can V-Rift maps be an extra challenge instead of only as a tool to rebalance areas? Well, for sure, we keep it in mind when we're originally doing the area that we kind of know that maps are going to come out. And that's going to be a little cherry on top in terms of rewards. But they're also a bit of a group activity. So there's sort of a little extra reward for working with friends on the area. But they're not strictly to rebalance, although it is kind of helpful for us when we get feedback from players. We can kind of digest all that once everyone's had time to play through it. And anywhere we kind of want to pull on a few strings, we might change a little bit of balance in the area, add a few specific map rewards as well. Ryan asks, will there be any other usage for queso, geyser, smolder stone, chisel, and thermal spring in the future? Nothing in the short term. This mouse skips leg day for sure. That's for sure. No end of September is good, says Tarako. Event in a new area together. Win-win, says Brian. Hopefully. Trevor says, thoughts on new release date yet? Like I said, very tentatively, but probably toward the end of September. We're just kind of wrapping up everything. Today actually is the due date for the area, and we're going to start more formal testing and play testing of the area. There's a lot of moving parts in the area, that's for sure. So it may require a little bit more testing than usual. And I know that's another thing I could kind of shed a little bit of light on as well, is how you progress in the area. So as I mentioned, you're taking these steps up the tower, and you only have so long until the eclipse makes all the steps in the tower crumble away, and that sends you back down to floor 1 and you restart. But depending on which floor you reach, you get to claim a cache of rewards, and it is based on the floor that you reach. So with the floor 2 cache and the floor 3 cache have different amounts of items in them. Gold you'll always find in the cache, and the higher up you go, the more gold you get to claim at the end of it. It gets quite significant towards the end. In the beginning, it's a little modest, but kind of ramps up as you get into higher floors. So it's going to really improve the amount of gold you earn each hunt by pushing up higher into the tower. Another thing that you earn from the cache, as well as loot drops while you go throughout the tower as well, are items to upgrade abilities that you have to make it further and further. So the 3 abilities we have, and their names may change, but at the moment they are called Stride, Stamina, and Siphon. Your Stride allows you to take more than 1 step at once, or basically how many steps you move forward every time you capture a mouse. And at the moment it starts at 1 and it ends at 10. So eventually you can pretend you have really long legs and you're taking 10 steps in a single bound. Your Stamina determines how many hunts you have in the tower before the steps will crumble away, sending you back down to the ground floor. And that starts at 40 hunts and ends at 100 hunts at the moment. And last but certainly not least is your Siphon. It's a sort of unique ability where every time you capture an eclipse within the tower, it increases your stamina. So it gives you more time on the clock by reaching floor 8 over and over again. But as I said, every time the floor themes repeat themselves, the floors get longer. So it gets harder and harder to reach the next eclipse and keep your Siphon going. As well as another final thing that you spend those resources on are sort of augmentations, we're calling them at the moment, before you enter the tower. So you start out and you see the beginning of the castle. Actually, it looks really cool. Maxine did the art. Let me see if I can find that. I took a screenshot the other day, but I think I deleted it since. I thoroughly enjoy the way it looks when you enter the tower. Uh-oh, it's broken. Uh-oh. I think I gotta delete myself. I can't. I broke it. It'd be in my trash. Let me see if I can find it there. I won't be so ambitious as to live debug this right now. There it is. All right. Put back. Sure. It's on my desktop. Good to know. All right, excuse me, mouse. Make way for other artwork. So when you're in the area, you begin outside the Gauntlet, where you can collect some Gauntlet string cheese to help you ascend the tower. That said, you don't have to use Gauntlet string cheese, a little bit like the Labyrinth, where Glowing Greer is going to help you out. But you can certainly use magical string cheese. You can use Bree string cheese as well, both inside and outside the tower. Before you enter, and this is a little bit towards the end of the area when you've sort of built a few upgrades, you can now start spending your resources on more temporary augmentations. So before you enter the tower, you could do something that's going to make you take an extra step every now and then, or add bonus loot to the mice for this run only. And that becomes sort of the long-term thing that you can always use these resources on, even when you've fully upgraded all your permanent abilities. Q says, with only 25 mice in the Valor Rift, it would imply at least 9 mice in the original King's Gauntlet don't have a Rift counterpart. Why is it so? Well, we just kind of took the theme. Like in other Rift areas, not necessarily every mouse has a one-to-one Rift version, but has sort of the same characters done in a Rift style in the spirit of the original area. So there is one mouse themed, like I said, after each floor, and there's one sort of champion of each floor as well. So each floor has 2 mice themed after it. That said, there's some new mice that don't really have real-world equivalents, if I can put it that way, some mice that drop some of the elixirs and stuff. There's a limited number of characters in the Valor region, so there are definitely some unique Rift characters in this area. Sen asks, can you have a say what floor you go to, or is it like Labyrinth where it's luck-based where you end up? Obviously, you have a lot of autonomy over how high you are going to reach, but there's no sort of decision-making like the Labyrinth where you're picking which way to go. It's all in order. So you go floors 1 through 8, and then those themes repeat themselves, but they're harder the second time. Can the number of steps taken be increased with catch streaks? A neat idea, but I fear there might be too many moving parts at that point. Even we were playing around with some of the different augmentations. And I think I was popping some ibuprofen due to headaches of trying to mesh together too many moving parts. And so that was sort of a big revelation as well. We wanted to simplify, simplify, simplify. We had a lot of complexity in the area at first, but not necessarily a lot of depth for all the complexity that was there. So it's in a much better place now where we've reduced the complexity, simplify it, have fewer things going on, but there's still lots of different choices and different ways to approach it, which is nice. Stejian says, will the pages be looted or exchanged in the general store? They will be purchased with a drop that you obtain from one of the Eclipse mouse, amongst other ways as well. That said, this area doesn't necessarily have any super rare drops that you're chasing after. Everything's kind of a slow and steady build-up to rewards, and you can kind of choose which order you want to unlock things in. As well as there's more of a time gate, so you could almost make a comparison to the Bristlewoods Rift, where it is a little bit challenging to get the runes, but as the more and more times you capture the Absolute Acolyte and you earn a King's Crown for it, you start to loot different boxes from the Absolute Acolyte that start to increase the amount of loot that you get each run. Similarly, every time you go through the tower, you're going to be able to upgrade yourself, or maybe not every single time, but as you upgrade your abilities, you're going to naturally just get higher and higher and higher in the tower, and you're going to reach better and better caches to claim because you're reaching a higher floor. So in the beginning, it's kind of a slow and steady trickle of rewards, but the more time you spend in the Gauntlet, the higher you make it and the more rewards you get each time you finish a run. Trevor says, will it be an enclosed area where the rewards are only for the area, or will there be external rewards as well? Well, there's new best in-game Rift Trap to earn, a new best in-game base to earn, not even for the Rift, but it'll outclass the Minotaur base, and the Valor of Codex as well applies actually to every area outside the Rift, because you're going to be able to obtain power type bonuses for every power type used in the original King's Gauntlet. So physical, tactical, shadow, hydro, arcane, forgotten. I feel like I'm forgetting a power type in there. Purple says, what's the purple base? A good question to come from somebody named Purple. That is, at the moment, the placeholder name is the Prestige base because its power increases based on how high you have made it in the tower. So when you first purchase the Prestige base, or whatever it ends up being called, it has fairly modest stats. But as you get better and better at the Valor Rift, depending on which floor you can reach, it gets power and luck bonuses applied to it permanently throughout the entire game. So it is a Rift base, but by reaching really, really high levels in the Valor Rift, it can be charged up to have stats that exceed the Minotaur base. Anson says, are the pages tradable? No, there's not a whole lot of tradable rewards in the area at the moment. The only things that will be tradable are some new trap skins that will take a little bit of time to craft them. But once you craft them, then you can sell them on the market to people who have not spent as long as you have to collect all the ingredients to make the trap skins. Jason says, any weekend events you can flip the switch on between now and the end of September? We'll take another look. We took a look at turning on a couple things like the Zombie Invasion event and the Sunken City bonus loot event. Unfortunately, we had a couple little loose ends we'd have to tie up. There's some functionality problems. So it wasn't quite as easy as flipping a switch. And so we kind of I think Giorgio and I discussed it for a little bit and we ultimately decided not to allow that to be a distraction from the Valor Rift and push it back by a few days potentially. So we were hoping to be able to just flip a couple switches, but when we did that, it didn't quite work as expected. Is the new trap crafted or bought at the moment it is purchased from the trapsmith using items that you collect in the Valor Rift? Reminder to sound your horns. That's a good reminder, Mike. I'm going to sound my horn. And I got a trap check as well. There you go. Nathan says, I can finally stop using the minnow. Indeed, its time maybe has come. That said, the amount of time that it'll take to fully charge the prestige base will obviously be somewhat in line with the amount of time it takes to earn the Minotaur base. So it'll definitely be an accomplishment as well. Purple says, loving this area. Purple gate, purple base, so much purpleness. Indeed, the color scheme, there's a lot of purple going on. I think one of the floors is even themed purplish. If I can get rid of this entry. Oop, I got rid of the base. You can see some of the great heads-up display artwork Maxine has been working on. I believe this is the Necromancer floor, is the green, and then the red above it is the Eclipse floor, and reach the Eclipse. Alex says, did he mention an ETA for the area? Very tentatively, but we are trying our hardest for the end of September. Brian says, how will the Codex work with other power types if there are no other sets and the best we can only arm is a Rift base? You can think of it in terms of the Lucky Codex that you can earn during the New Year's event. So it's not necessarily a set bonus like the Rift Stalker and Rift Walker Codex work. It's more like the +1 luck codexes that you get from New Year's. Sits in your inventory, and when you add the page, now anytime you have a physical trap armed, you have a 5% power bonus. Anytime you have a physical trap armed, you have a +1 luck bonus. Diamond says, will they bring out discounted map dust this year like the rare map dust crafter's kit? That is a very popular promotion for sure. We have Relic Hunter Season 7 slotted for November, so I don't see a reason why that would return with the next season refresh. Stejan says, how many hunts would it roughly take for someone heading in with the time split weapon? Will it be comparable to the grind for the time split dissonance trap, or even more? At the moment, it requires that you own the time split dissonance, and the new trap at the moment, its name is the Celestial Dissonance. So it's a bit of a spiritual upgrade, or spiritual successor, or celestial successor, I guess, to the time split dissonance. So I don't know if it'll take quite as long, but it will definitely be one of the more final rewards from the area. I think the base is going to unlock relatively quickly. Then you'll gain the Codex, and then probably the trap, the Codex pages. Certainly to get all 8 might be a bit of a challenge, and the trap skins as well will be a little bit of a above and beyond thing to craft and trade. Alex says, oh man, awesome. Good to hear. Assuming you know about September. KDM says, is this rather passive or active area? A little bit of both. I would say definitely more passive than active. There's not a whole lot of buttons to click as you start going up the tower. There's not really any, it's being a rift area, there's no changing your trap setup. I think the only sort of active thing you might be taking on while you ascend the tower is changing out your charm potentially when you reach a certain height. When the mice start to become harder and harder, you may want to slowly increase the power that you're bringing against them. So some of your ultimate Rift power charms, ultimate Rift luck charms, ultimate Rift lucky power charms, you may want to stockpile some of those for when you reach the high floors where your catch rate's going to start to tank a bit. Nathan says, I will live use some of the Bristlewood's Rift art in my homebrew D&T stuff. Good to hear. Q says, hope people can't just buy trap loot and skip the vast majority of hunting in the area. Like I said, I don't think there's not very much on the marketplace with this area. Pretty well all the rewards need to be earned by putting some time into the area and reaching high heights within the tower. At the moment, the only marketplace item are cosmetic trap skins. Brian says, flat out bonus game breaking? Yes and no. Certainly some of the more higher level Archduke area levels to come, depending on their scope and scale, it may take into account and assume that you're going to have earned or filled out your Valix of Coder, your Codex of Valor. I do it all the time when I say a word. I swap the beginning sounds on the words there, but it may assume that you have that bonus going into the area, so the mice will be a little bit tougher, similar to how traps work, where you can't use the mouse death bot the whole way through the game. You do need to start upgrading your hunting kit. Luhara says, got like every minnow trap part dropped from Great Winter Hunt 2018, and now with the new base, the retired minnow might not have to face my wrath for a while. Session says, will the clockwork base be needed too, or is it just the time split dissonance? At the moment, you do not need the clockwork base to start using the prestige base. That said, the clockwork base will come in extremely handy to fully charge your prestige base because you're going to have to reach very high floors. The mice are going to get harder and harder, so you're going to want every powerful charm you can get your hands on and every powerful rift upgrade that you can get your hands on as well. Spagear says, RIP Days fan, I agree. George and I we were on Amazon. We were going to order a relatively inexpensive but quality microphone. You can let me know what you think, but I think I should do that so that the mic doesn't pick up my MacBook's fan wanting to absolutely just explode the GPU and CPU for encoding video. Mark says 6 power types in KG, 8 pages for new codex. Ticket Law and Draconic are the other 2. No, it's only at the moment it's only limited to the power types that are used in the original King's Gauntlet. But 2 of the pages are luck-based, and the other 5 are give a power bonus. So I believe physical and tactical are the ones that have 2 pages to collect, so that you can get both a power type and a luck bonus on your trap. So we're still toying with the idea. We've got to kind of run some numbers, do some more playtesting, whether just having the codex in and of itself, the bindings would provide a rift bonus as well. We're kind of flowing through that and seeing how that affects the other rift areas and this area as well. Does the base have a limit? Little early to say. I would like for it to not have a limit, but that's going to kind of when all the pieces are in play. That's one of the last decisions we're going to make for the area is just how high can you push the luck of the prestige base. And if there's a little bit too much variance, we may have to cap it. But I kind of like the idea of it not having a cap so that down the road, when somebody gets access to a little bit better of a rift trap, you might be able to push it 8 floors higher. As well as by having a cap, it almost creates this assumption that you can, that it's a goal, like you can reach that. Whereas by having no cap at all, it's more about, well, how high can you go in the tower? So I kind of lean towards not having a cap. You can let us know what you think. Q says, absolutely love this no item on the marketplace. For sure, we try to have a little something for everybody. So there are players who, that is sort of the main fun they get out of the game is chasing after rare loot drops and selling valuable things on the marketplace, amassing amounts of gold, or even just the resource allocation of where they want to spend their gold to get return on investment. But there are other players that are more sort of, if I can use the term, a Spade Bartle type, more sort of adventuring, want to explore and experience every little thing that an area has to offer to do it all for themselves. And so we try to have a nice wide variety of areas in the game. We certainly recently had one that was along the lines of a warpath that was very about rare drops and valuable items. And so this is a little bit more about completionism and adventurism and finding every little thing that the area has to offer. Is the new trap an upgrade of the time split dissonance? Technically no, but it will require that you own the time split dissonance. Now thematically that can be so that the trapsmith can study the trap that you have there, or know that you know how to use the celestial dissonance. But mechanically speaking, we find it's just a structure that has been fairly well accepted for players to not feel like they're very difficult to acquire. Equipment became obsolete too soon. Because it's a stepping stone to the next one, that helps give it more intrinsic value. So along the lines of the School Sharks and the Rune Shark as well. That said, I don't think that's a reward structure that every single trap will have, but just when it kind of makes sense that, okay, this one can sort of be retired and there's enough of a challenge to obtain the next one where it would be even unreasonable to try to get the next trap without upgrading your trap first. If that makes sense. I feel like I was rambling. Chong says, instead of Toothlet, you put Prestige in it. Yeah, that's a way to think about it, but it's not consumable. So the denture base is very powerful, but you need to keep smashing teeth and feeding it more and more Fulmina's teeth to keep that power bonus going. This one, as long as you accomplish the feat of reaching an extremely high floor in the tower, that base bonuses will be yours throughout the game. Will the Prestige base have no requirement then, or will it still need the Rift base? Still kind of finalizing the requirements. A lot of it will come down to what the stats get capped at, if at all, and what the final rewards there are. But like I said, that's one of the last decisions we make because all the moving parts have to be in place to really see just how high we can push the height in the tower. That's it. As we're coming up on an hour, although I did get started a little bit late today, I apologize for that. We'll move on to the trivia, and as always, Larry will have some rewards. So let me clear this out of the way. And the trivia question today is, I think maybe I asked this trivia question before, but we'll see. The answer is not 48 or 21, although a number is involved. The original King's Gauntlet released alongside MouseHunt Longtail in 2010. You can believe it was that long ago. What day and month was Longtail released? $34 is a little too high for a day of the month. August 8 is close. You have the date correct, but not the month. 8th of June is correct. I think Mark was the first with the correct answer. June 8, 2019, Longtail was released. And when Longtail was released, the King's Gauntlet was released alongside with it. And we slowly but surely, I think every week, we release the next floor of the Gauntlet. Reward link incoming. 2019, what am I saying? I'm bad with dates. I should just not say dates. 2010. That's what I get for speaking for an hour straight. I am rather infamous for giving dates that do not exist. For instance, today is Friday, August 30th, and I might say something like Friday, August 25th. Like, Dave, there is no such thing. Do it all the time. Can't stop. Thanks for the rib. We took the rib out of that drop-down box, so it is quite impossible now to make a Larry reward link that could accidentally give out a rib, sandblasted metal, or any Minotaur drops. Q says, hope all the previous Rift bases are required for the new base. For sure, that's something, like I said, we'll make a decision kind of towards the end of playtesting. That said, to try and fully charge the Prestige base without using the Clockwork, or at least the Fracture Fissure base, would be quite the feat. So it may not have to necessarily be a hard requirement, because to do so without upgrading your Rift equipment at all, it would be potentially borderline impossible, but that's what we'll be playtesting. Thanks for the Celestial Dissonance Trap. Somehow it made it in the game early and accidentally given out in a reward link. And Brian's got my back by typing that out in the chat for all to enjoy. I could have pasted it in the chat as well. I apologize. Brian's got you covered though. Nathan says, what does a catch rate look like if you have the time split distance, Clockwork, and Rift Stalker Codex? Well, let's see here. I also have 6 messages in my inbox. What could those be? Alright, let me see. What do I have armed? I have the Minorca armed. Let's take that off. I am going to arm the time split distance, the Clockwork base, and a Rift Power Charm. Okay, sure. And the mice range from the easiest mouse being 91% chance to catch to the most difficult being 33%. With several of the floor champions being around 50%, and some of the other floor mice ranging from 95 to 68. I reset this before, I forgot that. But that's a note as well. That's the setup I've been using to kind of preliminarily set catch rates as the Minorca, the Clockwork base, and a Rift Power Charm to be able to kind of do adventure completion, and then sort of the long-term goals of really trying to efficiently collect some of the resource items to get the final rewards, as well as push your height very high to charge up your Prestige base, is more in line with the time split dissonance Clockwork base and a much better Rift Charm. Brian says the Prestige base is not part of the Rift Stalker set. It is going to be a Rift base, so it will have its Rift bonus, but when you take it out of the Rift, it's still going to be a very competent base? I don't know if that's quite the right word for a piece of equipment, but capable base, that's what I'm looking for. Will there be a must-use item to turn on like Wild Tonic, Fireball, Fuel, Tower Mana? At the moment, there is a consumable item called Champion's Fire, I think is what we've called it at the moment. That is what Franco came up with. And that is going to give +1 to some loot drops, so by no means is it going to kind of gate you, but it will speed up how quickly you can build your resources, and it's also going to give, at the moment anyway, we're playtesting, a +1 to your stride. So it starts off rather significant, because your stride starts at 1, so having +1 is you go twice as fast, but by the time you upgrade your stride to 10, and it's getting +1, you go 11, so it's only a 10% increase, so it's not super significant. That said, over the course of, if you're doing a run that's going to be a few hundred hunts, that's a few hundred extra steps you're going to get to take. But I don't think it'll be must-use in terms of earning any of the rewards from the area, but it'll certainly allow you to earn them quicker. Nathan says, good thing I stockpiled those Rift Ultimate Lucky Power Charms. Those will come in handy. That said, there's a lot of hunting to do here, so it would be difficult to stockpile quite maybe enough. Certainly, indeed, the Ultimate Charms would be kind of useful, except you'd burn through them pretty quick because each run is a little bit lengthy. Similarly, the cheese, there's not really any super valuable, hard to get important cheese per se, so bait keeps won't provide too much of an advantage either. Brian says, because Dave, we'd want the Clockwork to charge it, but won't Clockwork be weaker? It kind of depends where you are. So there might be a time where your Prestige base is not as powerful as your Clockwork base until you've reached a certain height in the tower. And then once it's exceeded the bonuses that the Clockwork base gives you, then it makes sense to switch over to the Prestige base and just get even a little bit further, which is going to make your base stronger. So in your next run, you could get a little bit further as well. That said, there does get... We'll play around with whether there needs to be a cap or not, but I don't think there necessarily will be, because because the floors keep getting longer and longer, it reaches a point of diminishing return where even you're upgrading your gear, but you're not upgrading it at a quick enough rate to make it to the next eclipse. Purple says, so Prestige base beats Minnow in the Rift, but not outside. Again, things may change during playtesting, but at the moment the intention is to have it better than the Minotaur base even outside of the Rift. Can the Rift base be at least a requirement, just to keep it a requirement for the best Rift base like it is now? That is a good point, and for sure we'll kind of explore that as well. It might come down to, or may as well come down to, what the requirement to unlock the area is. Like I said, I don't think it's just going to be added to the Rift detector. You may have to accomplish a small goal. Like the Golem Guardian Trap. Yeah, a little bit like that. All right, on that note, I think somebody has this room booked in 2 minutes, so I had better wrap up for a lengthy Feedback Friday, but I haven't been on Feedback Friday for a while, so there's certainly a lot to chat and get caught up on. So as I mentioned earlier, you can look forward, next week is coming new King's Crowns and a overhaul to the Hunter profile page, and thereafter, hopefully sometime in September, see the Valor Rift come to light, but I'm sure we'll have Feedback Fridays in between now and then as well to keep you in the loop, keep getting feedback, and get your impressions as thoughts to help us fine-tune the Valor Rift. So thanks for joining me. Have a great weekend, or evening, or morning, afternoon if you're watching this recorded, and I'll see you later.